Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our favorite evening of the year, the delightful, delicious, and only slightly deranged Max Ticktin Memorial Latke Hamantasch debate. I'm Amy Schwartz, president of the Jewish Studies Center, and on behalf of the Studies Center, I'd like to welcome you all to this, our flagship event, our favorite night of the year, our main course, one might say, in a full year banquet of offerings, both intellectual and humorous. And also welcome to, I wanted to say this was our flagship in-person event, but I don't want to insult the many people who are also watching on Zoom. So with all good luck to the hybridization of the Latke Hamantasch debate. And I can only hope to all the people watching at home that you are as well supplied with latkes and hamantaschen as we are here, so that you can follow along with our cutting-edge research. So the Latke Hamantasch debate is a venerable tradition, and although many institutions now run them, you see them everywhere, it's always my duty to remind everyone that Max Ticktin, the eponymous and much missed Max Ticktin, of blessed memory, actually invented this debate, then called the Latke Hamantasch Symposium, when he was director of the Hillel at the University of Chicago, if I remember correctly. And right, they're always a strong Chicago contingent with the Jewish Studies Center, demonstrating our intellectual chops. Max brought it here when he became our co-founder in Washington in the early 70s. For many years it continued. I think this is still the case. Chicago would do theirs at Hanukkah, and with robes and who knows what all, you know, if you ever watch them online, it's very, very academical. And we hold ours at Purim. And we're lucky because this also allows us to hark back to a much older tradition of what might be called Purim Torah, a salty, greasy, yummy tradition, in which, in classic Jewish fashion, the wranglings of very, very fine experts are intensely focused in intense debate on basically nothing much. So so we will call this a seemingly trivial topic. Emphasis on seemingly. And what experts we have with us tonight, my friends. We have a beloved local chef, we have a lawyer from the Brandeis Center, and not one but two White House correspondents, fresh off a long, long, long night of, okay, I promised Howard I would let him make all the State of the Union jokes. Apropos of which, of course, we also have the fabulous Howard Mortman to keep things rolling. So before I turn this all over to Howard, I just want to thank and acknowledge first and foremost my colleagues on the Jewish Studies Center board who really do all the work. Jerry Garfinkel, the treasurer and the tech director, who's even now at the controls. Mindy Reiser, the vice president. And Beryl Nerman is here, and who else is here that I'm not? Vivian is here. Vivian is here, and who else? So we have a good board showing, board and former board. This is the Jewish Studies Center is the kind of group where everyone's kind of done their turn, and of course, and Howard Mortman, who we are now proud to claim as a board member, as well as simply talent. And also to Adas Israel Congregation for hosting and co-sponsoring this event, as they have for so many years. On with the show. It's a joy to be in community and in contention with every one of you.
One more time for the great Amy Schwartz. Amy, for those limited remarks, you've earned yourself a medal, actually. I can present a medal for you. Nicely done. Well, actually, Amy, I'm pleased to say that the state of the Latke Hamantasch debate is strong. It's good. All right. How many of you, and by the way, how many of you have been to this event before? Show of hands. Oh, that's huge. All right. Then you know we hold it here in the at Adas Israel in the K room, and we do it in the K room because, as you know from your comedy lessons. Hard K sounds are always funny. For instance, chicken, as you know, never funny, but coconuts is hilarious, which is the hard K, which is why of all the Jewish holidays, Yom Kippur is the funniest. That's the reason why. All right, if you've never been to who has never been here before to one of this? That's the same hands. Wait a minute, that's not fair, right? We have two teams here. We have one for latkes and one for Hamantaschen, and it's nearly spring. So think of this as all Jewish baseball, and the walk-up music is Kol Nidre. See, there's another hard key sound. By the way, no truth to the rumor that Jewish Olympic hockey star Jack Hughes learned to play ice hockey by flipping latkes into the net. That's real. This is a great panel tonight. What a great group of people. Our strongest ever. I think it's our best ever. How do I know that? Well, check out some of the reactions that we got from folks when we announced tonight's lineup. Abigail Spanberger called and said she wants to respond to this debate too. This is actually interesting. There's more evidence. Bad Bunny called and said he wants to perform here too. Big event. This is interesting. The Kennedy Center called and said this team is so good they want their names on the building too. That's how good they are. Wow, thank you. I wasn't planning that one. Thank you. Iran called and said we're not afraid of bombs, but we are afraid of this year's participants in the annual Latke Hamantasch debate. Greenland called and said if America serves Latke and Hamantasch, they want in. More evidence that this is a great panel tonight. Maha called and said they're giving in to the science. Both latkes and Hamantasch are good for you. But they added as long as you make them with whole milk and beef tallow and only half your clothes on. So. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you. The jeans half, that's right, yeah. This sewage spill in the Potomac took one look at tonight's lineup and said, no way, pal, we're flowing back into the pipe. All right, that's all right. These jokes have a shelf life of like 17 days. So let's get started. There's a great panel. I'm going to start our first on the pro Hamantaschen side, the great Yael Krigman. Yael Krigman is a recovering. All right, let's just do it right now. Thanks for coming out. And here's her introduction. Yael Krigman is a recovering attorney and owner of Baked by Yael. She earned her undergraduate degree from the, I'm not going to step on that either. Applaud for Baked by Yael as well, if you could. All right. Thank you, yeah. She earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania and her Juris Doctor degree from the George Washington University Law School. Yael studied as a Fulbright Scholar in Spain before starting her first career at the global law firm of White & Case of Washington, D.C. Yael began baking to relieve stress during law school. She ultimately left her job as an international trade attorney to pursue baking full-time. After 5 years as an online business, Baked by Yael opened its first brick-and-mortar shop in 2015 directly across from the National Zoo, and now also participates in 3 weekend farmers markets in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Baked by Yael currently employs more than 24 people, and Yael was recognized by the White House in 2012 for her role as job creator and entrepreneur. I'm going to bring up Yael now. And just by the way, one note, if you saw the word baked and you thought we were talking about cannabis, you've come to the wrong debate. So please welcome Yael Krigman.
Thank you, Howard. I'm honored to be here tonight to support the Jewish Studies Center while defending a cause very dear to my heart, the humble Hamantasch. At first, you might think I've been on Team Hamantasch all my life. After all, I literally make a living selling Hamantaschen. This week, my amazing team at Baked by Yael is hand-rolling, filling, baking, packaging, and shipping thousands of these delicious treats to lucky people all over our region and across America. To preserve the integrity of this debate, Baked by Yael Hamantaschen are not being served here tonight. I would, though, like to give a shout out to the great folks at Sunflower Bakery, where tonight's treats have come from. Yes, today I'm thoroughly Hamantashed, but I wasn't always like this. I'm mature enough to admit now that when I was younger, I experimented with latkes. After all, everyone else was doing it. I grew up in a little shtetl called Annapolis. Walking home from school each day, I'd often encounter groups of teenagers huddled around a smoking frying pan, their street-grade olive oil cut with canola or who knows what. And I wanted to fit in. So to do that, I had to go along. But even then, I knew it was wrong. Over time, latkes started dividing my neighborhood. Some kids insisted on hand grading, while others hawked food processors out of their car trunks. Some threw in huge, disgusting pieces of onions, while others swore by salt and pepper alone. During the summer, when it was hot enough to fry a potato on the sidewalk, everyone started looking for relief. Some turned to sour cream and some to applesauce, and that's when society really started to break down. Rival factions began staking out their turf and threatening anyone who dared to confront them. What used to be a peaceful town was caught in the latke wars between the Spuds and the Crisps. I knew there had to be a better life than this. How could anyone enjoy a food that caused so much strife? I started doing research and discovered latke's sordid history. Here's just a sampling. General Robert E. Lee wrote in a letter to his wife, "What a cruel thing to separate and destroy families and friends and mar the purest joys and happiness God has granted us in this world, to fill our hearts with hatred instead of love for our neighbors, and to devastate the fair face of this beautiful world." Although lesser scholars think that he was writing about war, the more educated among us know that he was referring to latkes. Here's another. Did you know that the root cause of the Great Irish Famine was a run on potatoes at Hanukkah? So many Irish Jews were making latkes that the farms just couldn't keep up. The head latke chef at the time is still a reviled figure in Ireland today. Just step into any pub in Dublin and shout the name Paddy O'Fryan at the top of your lungs and see what happens. And another, the massive eruption of Krakatoa in the Pacific was initially believed to be the result of seismic activity, but scientists now trace it to someone's misguided attempt to make latkes in an Instapot. The list goes on and on. Armed with knowledge like this, I had to fight back. I joined my high school debate team to hone my skills. We competed against other schools and even made it to the national tournament. When putting together an argument in policy debate, it's common to outline the slippery slope that starts with something seemingly innocuous and ends in something horrifying. Finally, I had the tools I needed to see the world clearly. For example, did you know that eating latkes leads to higher demand for oil, which leads to higher oil prices, which leads to more international conflict, which leads to nuclear war? Or that eating latkes leads to greasier fingers, which leads to accidental missile firings by fighter pilots, which leads to nuclear war? Or that eating latkes fried in schmaltz leads to high cholesterol, which leads to more prescriptions for statins, which leads to increased side effects like headaches, which leads to distractions for world leaders, which leads to failed treaty negotiations, which leads to rogue nations, which leads to nuclear war. Also, chicken fat is gross. By the time I went to law school, I was ready for battle. I went on to become an international trade attorney at one of the world's largest firms. I had a front row seat to the cutthroat fights between corporations and countries in the high-stakes world of global commerce, and they were nothing compared to tonight's debate. Eventually, I grew tired of the big law firm style, and I decided to open my own business. Having ruled out selling latkes for obvious reasons, I settled on baked goods. And although Baked by Yael makes and sells all kinds of delicious treats, customers kept begging me to make Hamantaschen for Purim. I finally relented, and, well, the rest is history. People love our Hamantaschen so much that we now offer them year-round, and we also have vegan and gluten-free options, too. No one ever asks if we make latkes. From a structural standpoint, Hamantaschen had clear advantages. Whereas the floppy latke won't hold its form, the Hamantasch is as sturdy as it is delicious. Hamantaschen have proudly defined edges that cradle their sweet fillings, while latkes have to be messily covered in toppings in a feeble attempt to make them edible. The latke's circular shape, if you even can call it that, means tons of wasted space in frying pans. Meanwhile, the triangular Hamantaschen achieve the perfect maximization of surface area when they're placed side by side on a baking sheet or in a shipping box. And let's talk about how those shapes came to be. According to one of our most sacred texts, Wikipedia, Hamantaschen may represent Haman's pockets or Haman's ears or Haman's hat or the three patriarchs or apparently female reproductive organs, all richly symbolic origin stories. And latkes, well, they're kind of round because blobs are round. If you want to measure the size of a Hamantasch, all you need is a ruler. To calculate the surface area of a latke, you basically need a math degree. Hamantaschen and latkes both celebrate the survival of the Jewish people over those who tried to destroy us. So it might seem like they're tied on that point. But Hamantaschen were purpose-built for Purim, whereas latkes existed well before Hanukkah. In fact, the etymological precursor to the modern word for latkes can be found in the book of Samuel, where the word levivot refers to dumplings made from kneaded dough. As it is written, Amnon lusted after his half-sister Tamar and pretended to be ill to get her to make him latkes. This is totally true, you can look it up. How can we hold in any sort of regard a food whose history isn't even PG? Think of the children. Hamantaschen are soft and they melt in your mouth when you eat them, but their corners provide a stealthy self-defense tool. Latkes are useless in a fight. What are you going to do with them? Threaten to raise your opponent's BMI? Would you rather try to defend yourself with a throwing star or the equivalent of a greasy Nerf frisbee? Ninjas clearly prefer Hamantaschen. Have you ever seen a ninja eating a latke? I rest my case. Hamantaschen come in an endless variety of flavors, from the traditional poppy seed and prune to the modern apricot, raspberry, and chocolate. There's no need to pick one because you can just get an assortment. It's not practical to make multiple versions of latkes at the same time, even if anybody wanted to eat them in the first place. Have you ever seen an assortment of latkes? One of the best Jewish traditions is the sending of mishloach manot on Purim. When you send someone a box containing delicious Hamantaschen, they'll know that you really care. Bakedbyal.com. We ship nationwide. But send them a latke, and they'll wonder what they did to hurt you. You may as well put a horse's head on their pillow. In the end, the choice is clear. One path leads to peace, love, and poppies. The other path leads to division, disappointment, and nuclear war. Choose wisely. Choose Hamantaschen. Thank you.
One more time for Yael Krigman. Wow. Wow. All this time I've shopped, bought your stuff. I had no idea you were that angry. That's just, wow. All right. We're going to move right on to another lawyer. We have another lawyer now. Joel Taubman, Director of Student Programs, Staff Attorney at the Brandeis Center. Before joining the Brandeis Center, Joel served as Assistant Attorney General in Virginia's Office of Civil Rights, representing the Commonwealth against landlords, employers, and schools violating Virginia law. Joel's team won the largest jury verdict in the history of the Virginia Fair Housing Law. He also led Virginia's OCR's K-12 investigations and was appointed to Attorney General Jason Miyare's Anti-Semitism Task Force. Joel serves on the board of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists, a fabulous organization, volunteering as the Jewish Voluntary Bar's Director of Student Engagement. Joel is a graduate of the George Washington University Law School, where he was a Brandeis Center JIG SAW Fellow and Law Clerk. While at GW Law, Joel was also a member of the International Law in Domestic Courts Journal, the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board, and founded a law student group fighting for Uyghur human rights. Joel studied law after a career zoning, permitting, and constructing cellular towers at Crown Castle. And he has a BS in mechanical engineering after all of that. Wow. Okay. From the University of Virginia, please give a warm Latke Hamantasch debate to Joel Taubman. Oh my God. All right.
I'm just going to open that I can calculate the circumference. I'm here to help us decide. We have a decision to make between luscious latkes or a dry cookie. Between our crispy king and not enough jelly. And I have to say, Yael, gave an amazing presentation, but between her and our moderators and our introducers, I was frankly confused. Hamantaschen, Ozne Haman. Everyone keeps saying these words, and I heard no booing. Do we have to say it right? Haman? Or Haman? You know, a man tries to destroy us millennia ago, and we're still making fun of his ears. It's the right combo of vindictive and nonsensical. And I'm imagining Achashverosh in this position, talking about what's going on. It's huge. This Haman Kartarlson, he's smart. He talks about this scattered people. But my in-laws, Mordechai Kushner, he's the best. Haman had to go. He always gave me an earful, but I say earfeh, verkakt, vertummelt. He had funny ears, but also so dry. I mean, the man had dry ears, but why millennia later am I still hearing about it? Why do I have to suffer every Purim because of this? Now, as was mentioned, I'm a civil rights attorney, and I love these two holidays as civil rights holidays. Purim is a holiday about the freedom to not bow, about equal rights under law, and among many others, the right to protect ourselves just like our neighbors did. Hanukkah is about a right to practice our faith and be proud Jews in our homeland. At the Brandeis Center where I work, we do this every day to ensure our laws equally protect Jews. We focus on ending discrimination, not words, discrimination, targeting Jews for who we are and for our connection to the land where our ancestors are from and where half of Jews live. These holidays are also both about strong women. Now we know Esther, who stood up and said that she was going to save the people, that she was not going to step aside and that she was going to take that role. But where do the luscious, crispy latkes come in? There is no civil right to use lamp oil to fry a New World potato in the Hanukkah holiday. Now, Yael showed us that Hanukkahs do date back to King David's children. King David himself loved latkes. But we don't eat latkes because of the greatness of King David. We eat latkes because of Judith. Now, this history, Yael is right, is not PG. It is a history of Jewish victory. For millennia, Jews celebrated 2 victories at Hanukkah. We told the story, yes, of Judah the Maccabee and his defeat of the Seleucid Greeks. But we also told the story for many, many centuries, and only until recently did this story begin to fade in the Hanukkah tales, of Judith, who defeated the Assyrian general Holofernes when he attacked into Judea and besieged Bethulia. This is not a PG story I'm about to tell. The Jews were besieged. They were going to give up. Maybe they thought they were French. I'm not sure. But Judith said, "No way. I will be the means by which God delivers us." And the elders of the town heard her say this and they said, okay, lady. But she goes out and, like a scene from an old cartoon, eyes popping, seeing Judith come out into the Assyrian camp, they let her in to the tent of the great general Holofernes. And she plies him with levivot, with salty cheesecakes, so that he becomes thirsty and drinks more and more and more wine. And after he passes out, so Judith carries his head out, and the Jews march out and defeat the Assyrians, running in chaos. This is the story of the latke. This is not a PG tale. And the latkes we eat are the descendants of these salty, salty cheesecakes. We know in medieval Italy, the Jews were frying, and they were frying cheese. We know in the Pale of Settlement, they were doing the same with buckwheat, and we, the Jews, adopted the potato as our own when it came over from the New World. We cooked it in oil when we could afford it, and were able to put sour cream on our delicious latkes and our crispy kings. And when we couldn't afford it, we had the delicious, delicious flavor of schmaltz to enhance the aroma and the flavor of these latkes. We know here in America, they threw latke parties. And with the rise of Crisco and cheaper olive oils, we were able to add sour cream back onto our latkes once again. That American abundance allowed us to have this full measure of enjoyment and still occasionally use schmaltz. Just throw on some applesauce, it'll still be good. The latke of today, the crispy on the outside, the creamy inside, do try frying it in schmaltz occasionally, but don't forget this salt, and maybe have a little wine. Haman may have given us his ears, his dry ears, but Judith, the heroine, and this great country gave us our crispy king. And so I know you will vote latke.
Joel, that was great. Fabulous. All right, we're going to make the transition now. The two, as you all know, the two largest professions in Washington are lawyers and the White House press corps. We've had two lawyers so far, and now we're going to switch to the White House press corps part of Washington. James Rosen, the great James Rosen, is a leading reporter, historian, and best-selling author. His work has appeared in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, Politico, the Atlantic, Harper's, National Review, and the American Bar Association Journal, among other periodicals. He is the chief Washington correspondent for Newsmax, following 2 decades of acclaimed reporting at Fox News. During the Obama administration, Rosen's exclusive reporting on national security subjects led to its being placed under surveillance by the FBI and censored by the State Department, episodes that triggered headlines, investigations, and reforms. By the way, this is in James's bio. His memorable exchanges with political figures include him asking about the first question of President Biden about his cognitive fitness back in January 2022, and eliciting from then former President Trump his vow to stay in the 2024 campaign even if indicted. Rosen's books include The Strong Man, John Mitchell, and The Secrets of Watergate, Cheney One-on-One, a collection of transcripts from the 10-hour oral history that Rosen conducted with former Vice President Dick Cheney in 2014, A Torch Kept Lit, Great Lives of the 20th Century, an anthology of eulogies by the late William F. Buckley Jr. that Rosen edited and which spent 5 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, Scalia, Rise to Greatness, 1936 to 1986, and about to hold up part of the publicity tour for the book, being the Latke Hamantasch debate, and released this month, Scalia, Supreme Court Year, can Zoom see this? Supreme Court Years, 1986 to 2001. Please buy many copies of this book because he has a wife, 2 sons, and 2 cats. Rosen splits his time between Washington and the Chesapeake Bay. Please welcome author, White House correspondent, and just all-around tremendous human being, James Rosen.
All righty. First of all, it's a rigged debate. Look how they have 4 fakakta latkes and only 3 lonely Hamantasch. Some of you like to eat a lot of latkes. We are compelled to begin by objecting to the lighthearted tone of the proceedings thus far. These are serious matters, and the stakes are high. It might be tempting for some to portray this debate as simply a stalking horse for the larger and ancient clash between the champions of savory and the defenders of sweet. Our team rejects such facile distinctions. This is, in truth, a titanic kibitzing between good and evil. Thank you. Bless you. Johnny always got the bigger laughs on the pickup, right? Like, of the kind to which the Cold War should have prepared us. As George Santayana warned us, those who forget Ashkenazi recipes are doomed to leftovers. Without wishing to sound harsh, there can be no escaping the unassailable fact that latkes are the vile Untermenschen of Ashkenazi food. With their unsettled blend of fried potatoes, eggs, flour, onions, and grease, latkes are fit only for composting or even darker fates. How such a dish, with its lowly origins, ever managed to attach itself to a white shoe holiday like Hanukkah is frankly beyond us. We are left only to marvel at the trickery and deceit by which the latke has managed to insinuate itself into the heroic story of the oil lasting 8 days, as well as international banking and the garment industry. I should just take my things and go, right? I should go? I should leave. All right. Hamantaschen, on the other hand, carries no such baggage. This light, effervescent, pastry-filled pocket of dough and artificial fruit preserves is associated with the festival of Purim. And just like its mushy and yummy center, it refuses to be bogged down by the unwelcome associations with Haman, the villain of that holiday, that have been thrust upon it through no fault of the foodstuff's own. Rather, with its triangular shape representing the confluence of light, shadow, and moral contemplation, the Hamantaschen uplifts us all. If all that were not enough, if some of you might somehow require further persuasion, we have before us the ineradicable record of communist societies where the latke has been tried many times but has never produced outcomes favorable to the ordinary worker. Once again, by contrast, Hamantaschen is universally known as the preferred delicacy of the Founding Fathers, the resistance partisans of World War II, the Beatles, Motown, and every other forward-looking institution. On any basis, therefore, the choice is clear as the vegetable oil dumped into latkes with such wild abandon like a Superfund site, exacerbating asthma, acne, and other acute illnesses. It bears asking, even at this late stage of the proceedings, whether there really even is such a thing as Jewish food. On this, we turn to the man, already so effectively advertised by Howard, who, in the years when there was no Jewish justice on the Supreme Court, took pleasure in identifying himself a devout pre-Vatican II Catholic as the de facto Jewish justice of the Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia. He did. You can ask Nat Lewin, who's still around. And Justice Scalia used to say, by way of explaining how he strove to separate the tenets of his Catholic faith from his jurisprudence. There is no such thing as a Catholic hamburger. The closest we would come, he would say, is if the hamburger were made perfectly. We reserve the balance of our time and to the right to go off the shuffleboard entirely for Goyish candy and Italian food. Thank you.
All right, one more time for James Rosen. Let's hear it for James Rosen one more time. James knows that I'm a sucker for his impressions, so you've earned another plug of the book Scalia. So everybody, please go out and buy the copy of the book Scalia. Fabulous. By the way, we've had 3 legal presentations so far. I'm wondering, is jurisprudence or Jewish prudence? Is that all right? And the greatest of all, Tamara Keith. Tamara is NPR's senior White House correspondent. She has been on the beat through 3 presidents and 4 presidencies dating back to 2014. She also co-hosts the NPR Politics podcast and is a featured contributor on the PBS NewsHour, where she is one half of the Politics Monday duo. In 2018, Tamara was elected to serve on the board of the White House Correspondents Association, then served as its president in 2022 and 2023. Previously, Tamara covered Congress for NPR and business and economics before that. Tamara has deep roots in public radio and got her start in news by writing and voicing essays for NPR's Weekend Edition Sunday as a teenager. She earned a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the University of California, Berkeley, and a master's degree at the UCB Graduate School of Journalism. She and her husband, Ira, have 2 boys, so she's completely and totally outnumbered at all times. And Tamara's just a wonderful person. She can lighten up any room with just a flick of a switch. So please welcome Tamara Keith.
Hello. So having not done speech and debate, I went with the personal essay format, so watch out. As you may be wondering, Keith is not typically a Jewish name, and I, in fact, did not start out Jewish. When I was 16, I met a nice boy named Ira, and I know what you're thinking. Ira Glass of This American Life. No. Ira Flato of Science Friday. No. My Ira is a veterinarian. And he was not 80 years old when I met him, nor is he now. But someday. We met in college the first day of classes, and when I told my dad about this nice boy I met named Ira, he said, "Is he Jewish?" And I said, I have no idea. Because I did not know that Ira was a Jewish name. Because I was raised Methodist-ish in a small town in California's Central Valley, and I clearly had some learning to do. For instance, I had watched the great Mel Brooks film Spaceballs many times. I thought it was funny. But I had no idea that Mel Brooks was Jewish, and I didn't get the Jewish princess joke for years. So this is the part of the debate where I'm dramatically underselling myself to lower expectations so then I can later blow you all away. Is it working? Ira and I hit it off. We just celebrated 20 years of marriage last week. And because it was important to raise our mythical, now very real children Jewish, I converted before we got married. And as part of that process, I read books by Jewish scholars. I had to write essays. And the rabbi I was working with encouraged me to explore Jewish cooking. So in Ira's family, making latkes is a thing. It is a production. It is a very, very important family tradition. And they aren't just called latkes, they are called Poppy's latkes.
And Poppy was my mother-in-law's grandfather who owned a dairy restaurant in New York. He was the legendary maker of the latkes. And to this day, now our family's latkes are made the way he made them. So I innocently asked my mother-in-law for the recipe. And I will skip ahead to the punchline here to say that she totally set me up to fail. Completely and totally set me up to fail. She sent me this, which is a photocopy of a page in a recipe book called Love and Knishes, which is a lovely book. There are no mentions, however, of Poppy here on this page, but I did not know I was being set up. So I dutifully followed the recipe, and the latkes came out all wrong. They were like over-crisp hash browns. Think Waffle House, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with Waffle House. Waffle House hash browns are fine, but they are not latkes. So it was just such a total failure, and it was a lot of work, and so I retreated. I am ashamed to say that for several years, I made Manischewitz instant latkes. Just add eggs and defeat. And then finally I got up the nerve to ask for a proper lesson. And it turns out that this recipe, and they actually, my family opens the book every time they make the latkes. They open the book. This recipe was merely a suggestion. And so, I was basically living the ultimate parable of Jewish cooking. The real family recipe, Poppy's latke recipe, involves an off-brand food processor that has both a shredder and a spinning blade that work simultaneously to create the perfect latke potato texture. And then, because this food processor is so essential to the process of making the latkes, and because it has not been sold in stores in 30 years, it has to be carefully stored in its original box, in a closet full of other appliances, also stored in their original boxes. The latkes must be fried in an electric frying pan that is at least 40 years old. It is also only used once a year, maybe twice if you're lucky. And they come out a perfect consistency, crispy on the outside, glorious on the inside, ready for dunking in applesauce for that perfect balance of grease and fruit. Don't get me started on sour cream. And they must be eaten immediately, while they are still hot enough to burn your mouth. So when Tevi Troy, the presidential historian and standout debater, I would say, from last year's event, texted me to ask what team I was on, because he heard I was going to be here, there was no question. He wrote, "Hope you're on the same team. As they say, there is no alternative." Team latke, all the way. Latkes are a lot of work, but you know what? They're worth it. They are great on their own. You could make them into a sandwich if you're feeling fancy. You can't eat just one. I dare you to try. They are so addictive. And they fill the whole house with the smell of oil, the delicious smell of fried that lasts for days and days and days. They symbolize a miracle, a glorious victory, a flame that wouldn't die. And then there's Hamantaschen. No one converts for Hamantaschen. If Hamantaschen were on a platter with other desserts, they'd be the ones left at the end, picked over and sad. I mean, I guess they're better than oatmeal raisin cookies, but that's not really saying much. Hamantaschen are like the Jewish equivalent of fruitcake. There's random fruit, a texture that leaves much to be desired. Now, to be fair, because I would not want to run afoul of the fairness doctrine or the FCC, I will admit that a good Hamantaschen is not bad. But a bad Hamantasch is terrible. Chalky, dry, with a leathery blob of dried out jelly. And there are a lot of bad Hamantaschen in this world. Just this past Sunday, my son returned from religious school and handed me a piece of Hamantasch. And I took a bite, and it was not good. So I tried to give it back to him. And he was like, nah, keep it. What cookie does a kid willingly give to their mother? A bad cookie. Go Latkes. And in conclusion, support for this speech was brought to you by the Latke Foundation, delivering socially conscious oil and potatoes year-round. Latkes, they're not just for Hanukkah anymore.
One more time for Tamara Keith. Tamara. Very good. All right, we're near the end, and I'm going to bring Amy up in a second to close this out. And normally I don't do this. And by the way, I don't know if any of the panelists want to make any final remarks, you're welcome to. I've never done this before. I'm going to pick on one panelist because, James, I was just curious. Let's say Latkes and Hamantaschen were in a boxing ring, and the boxing match was narrated on ABC Wide World of Sports by Howard Cosell. Howard, the great Jewish legend Howard. So James, you got to come up here and let's do it in front of the microphone so the Zoom people out here in Wide World of Sports can hear what would happen if Howard Cosell were narrating a fight in the ring between Latkes. I'll give you a second to collect yourself and your jokes here. And Hamantaschen, Howard, take it away, Howard Cosell.
You know, the confirmation bias of a Howard demanding an impersonation of a Howard, right? That's number one, right? It's shameful. Look, before I do that, I've got to be real with you all. I'm a lapsed Jew who married a lapsed Catholic, and as the old Woody Allen line used to go in his stand-up routines, he used to say, I'm an atheist and my wife's an agnostic, and we have terrible arguments about which religions not to raise the children in. We replicated all of that. And honestly, the last time I probably had either of these alleged delicacies was probably the Carter era. At which time, the preeminent sportscaster was known as Howard Cosell. Now, truth be told, again, if you really want to master Howard Cosell, there's 3 Howard Cosells you have to master. And by the way, I know that this crowd knows who Howard Cosell is because my presence here serves to reduce the average age to 80. Just winning friends everywhere I go, eh? Yes. There's straight ahead garden variety Howard Cosell, the routine Howard Cosell. I wish I had like a little clinging thing, but like sort of a cling. Okay, round 11, Muhammad Ali still on his toes, sticking, jabbing, moving like the Muhammad Ali of old. Right? Like that would be your standard, right? Et cetera. Okay. The action thus far largely desultory. Okay. Then there's, I can't believe what I'm seeing, my head's about to explode off my neck, Howard Cosell, right? Now Ali's on the attack. He's been playing possum. You know, that sort of, you're right, the screaming. What am I doing here? And then there is bitter post-scandal Howard Cosell. You know, you all remember the controversy when he made a reference to an African-American player on live ABC Monday Night Football, and it was kind of misconstrued, and you know, he was kind of canceled, an early example of canceling way back in, I think, 1988 or some such thing, 85. And, you know, Cosell just couldn't accept this, and he was blind and bitter in his apartment near the end, and it sounded more like something like this, like, how dare they summon the print media, cast aspersions? I, who stood up for Cassius Clay, a.k.a. Muhammad Ali. I, who stood up for Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. How dare they? Thank you very much.
All right, one more time for all the participants today. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to bring up Amy to close us out, if that's all right with everybody. And let's hear Howard Cosell.
And Howard Cosell. I have nothing to add to these fabulous presentations. It's almost enough to make me switch sides. I won't say which way. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to a wonderful audience that, went with it. And let's hit the snacks. L'chaim, exactly. Oh, you want to vote? Okay. That's usually Howard's call. Okay. All right. Let's hear. Okay, we had. Let's hear it for. Okay, how many for Hamantaschen? I have to count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I'm getting about 18. Okay, how about the latkes? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe the latkes have it. They always win, but I would say no shade from that to our fabulous debaters. I have rarely heard better arguments for the Hamantasch or for the latke. And Tamara, can I just say, I think the line, "No one converts for Hamantaschen," is going to go down in Jewish Studies Center history. All right, let's have at it. I think we have enough of everything for everybody. Thank you all so much.